After weeks of holdouts, setbacks, and finally partisan action, today Joe Biden signed his $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill into law.
This historic legislation is about rebuilding the backbone of this country and giving people in this nation, working people, middle-class folks, people who built the country, a fighting chance.
The bill cleared its final hurdle in Congress yesterday without a single Republican vote in either chamber. And relying on a Senate rule that lets lawmakers block the filibuster on certain spending bills, but that's not an option for other major initiatives Democrats are hoping to push through, at least not now, which is why a growing number are pushing to abolish the filibuster altogether, including Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who joins me now. Congressman, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you, Jim. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure. How did this go from a big COVID relief bill to one of the biggest anti-poverty initiatives in decades?
This bill represents the promise of President Biden and of Democrats. This is about ending the pandemic. It's going to get shots into arms. It's going to get kids back to school. It's going to get Americans back to work. And it's not just a rescue plan. It's a recovery plan. It's going to put $1,400 into people's pockets and launch a roaring jobs and infrastructure package for at least the next 3 years.
You know, speaking of it being big and recovery, Richie Neal, pretty powerful guy, chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, said to us on the radio the other day that up to $300 check that a family with a kid under 6 can get should be made permanent. Ed Markey said to us several days later that the $1,400 stimulus check should become a recurring monthly universal basic income-like kind of thing. First, do you support those two notions? And two, whether you do or not, is it real to think either of those things could happen?
Well, first, let's just pause and reflect on the tremendous progress achieved with this bill. This bill puts money into working families' pockets. This bill gives state and local governments the money that they need to invest in infrastructure. This bill gives schools the money that they need to create proper learning environments for kids. This bill represents not just rescuing people in the midst of a crisis, but also giving them the tools that they need to launch into a roaring 20s. Are there elements of this bill that we want to persist? Absolutely. The child tax credit is one of the most significant anti-poverty programs in American history, and it should be made permanent.
How about a universal basic income proposal? Ed Markey said to us the other day, I don't think it's going to reach that $2,000 a month thing that Bernie Sanders and he were talking about last year, but it should happen. Do you think it should happen?
My focus is on creating jobs for my constituents here in Massachusetts, creating jobs in the life sciences sector, which has been such a crucial resource in the middle of this pandemic, and which will not just be the salve for this crisis, but also a platform for new jobs in biomanufacturing and in research and development. In offshore wind, which is going to be a critical element of renewable energy as we try to tackle climate change. I'm focused on jobs and opportunities for my constituents.
So does that mean you don't look favorably on a universal basic income proposal?
It means that I'm looking at jobs, education, opportunity for people. I am not an ideologically rigid elected official. I want to do what I think creates the maximum opportunity for the constituents of my district. Right now, they need direct survival checks and $1,400, and they need access to jobs and high-quality education going forward.
You know, there's no doubt this is a major historical moment, almost FDR-like, as I said, no GOP. And it seems to me, as I said in the introduction, Congressman, that with the filibuster in place, at least as of this moment, not enough Democratic votes to get rid of it, and a bunch of Democrats saying if there are any other future huge initiatives like infrastructure, they got to be paid for, which means taxes. This auspicious beginning may also be the end of the line of bold initiatives becoming law coming from the Biden White House. That's likely, or at least possible, is it not?
Well, I don't take quite as gloomy a view on it. I think that we do need an infrastructure package going forward. However, the American Rescue Plan contains in it sums for state and local governments, for public schools, that are sufficient for us to do significant capital improvement over the next 3 years. This is not just a rescue plan, it really is a rescue and recovery plan. This is an infrastructure plan as well as a plan to get us out of the pandemic.
But, you know, you're not as gloomy as I am. Let me explain the reasons for my gloom. You guys in the House today voted for a fairly modest background check bill. It's supported by a mere 84% of the public, as you know. 77% of Republicans support it. Yet of the 211 Republicans in the House, only 8 of them voted for it. If only 8 Republicans can vote for a bill that has 84% support and 77% support in their own party, why is something that's much more controversial, that I know it's at the center of your agenda, like climate change, have a chance in hell of going anywhere unless the filibuster is eliminated?
I agree with you. We got to get rid of the filibuster. The filibuster is not some sacrosanct constitutional star. The filibuster is an obscure parliamentary maneuver of the 19th century that became a mainstay of 20th century obstructionism, mostly to prevent civil rights legislation from passing and then to obstruct President Obama's agenda. We need to do away with the filibuster so that we can pass exactly the kind of popular common sense policy that you just referred to with background checks and with climate change legislation. I'll give you another example of that. Why don't we have a national green financing mechanism to create jobs by retrofitting our housing stock to make it more energy efficient? That pays itself back in terms of energy savings over the long term, while also getting to carbon neutrality with our residential housing stock. Popular legislation that probably could not pass under a filibuster mechanism.
By the way, as you know, but I'm not sure everybody at home does, the filibuster could be eliminated without one Republican vote in the Senate. If the 50 Democrats stuck together as one, that would happen. Before we leave, talking about getting rid of for a second, I want to play a little piece of a disgusting ad by Lauren Boebert, one of your colleagues, Republican colleagues in the House. It's called Tear Down the Wall, meaning the wall around the Capitol, and it's the last few seconds, and people at home should listen to the last sound that you'll hear.
Welcome to Fort Pelosi, where Democrats decry walls from within their own heavily guarded razor wire wall. Madam Speaker, tear down this wall.
Madam Speaker, tear down this wall, and then a gunshot. Why is this woman not expelled from Congress?
She's an example of people who prize performance and demagoguery over actual governance. And we cannot let the Lauren Boeberts of Congress drive the agenda or drive the conversation. We need to focus on ending this pandemic. We need to focus on building back a strong, inclusive economy. I'm not going to let myself be distracted by her antics because it's just not what's going to help my constituents right now. I'm going to represent the values of my district by not forging political partnership with those who are saying that President Biden was not elected in a free and fair election. But I'm not going to focus my bandwidth on people who are clearly in Congress for the wrong reasons.
I wish I had the same focus you did, Congressman. Congressman, it's good to see you. Thanks so much. Congratulations on today.
Thanks for having me on.